Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're checking out Ne Zha 2, biggest animated film ever, and it's in America, so we figured we'd just go watch it. Saw it in IMAX theater. Nobody was sitting in there. It was a really odd experience. Really excited to talk about the film. We're also going to take a look at Black Christmas, the 2006 film. This is a mini review. I didn't think we were going to be talking about this, but Andy ended up watching it due to some recent news that we're going to talk about in our news segment. Stick around for that. Top of the Oscars. 2025 Oscars have come and gone. They were on Hulu. Some of us watched it. Some of us couldn't watch it. Very excited to talk about what happened at the Oscars this year. Snubs, fleeces, flubs, and all kinds of excitement to come. Before we get to all that, we need to talk about the news. Before we get to the news, what we watched this week. You've been busy, Andy. You've been watching some stuff. And I know we're going to talk about Black Christmas towards the end of the show, but between now and then, what else did you watch this week?
Oh, since we decided to kind of take a look at Ne Zha 2 over the weekend, I was like, well, let me try and watch the first one, which came out in 2019 and was a big hit, was made only for like $20 million and made nearly $1 billion. And it was a big 5-year project. We're going to talk more about that in our review. Definitely a pretty wild movie and a big, like, I've talked a lot about how Chinese cinema has really advanced over the last 10-15 years. They used to really not make very good movies and they would import a lot of American stuff, and now their own studios are starting to make much better films, including like now this massive animated film. So I watched the first one to get some background. We'll talk about it more later, but good stuff.
It seems so weird that it can make so much money and have so little impact here in America. Like, not only is nobody talking about it, like most people couldn't even tell you who like the main characters, like what they look like of these movies, right? And the one that's popping is the second one. There's already been a first feature which you watched. Where'd you end up watching it? Was it streaming somewhere?
No, it was a rental, but it
Nice.
was like a $3
Hey,
one.
supporting foreign cinema, right here on Off Script. Look at you, that Bronx. Good for you. Well, we'll talk more about it, I think, before we get into Ne Zha 2. I only watched one other thing this week. I rewatched Saturday Night, the film from a few years ago, the Jason Reitman film. It's the 90 minutes leading up to Saturday Night Live. We talked about this a few years ago on the show when it came out, and it's a
It was
good
last
time.
year.
It was
It was
last
last
year. We talked about
fall.
this a few months ago on the show when this came out, and it was a good time. But I ended up watching it late at night because it hit Netflix again. Better on rewatch. Gonna be honest, good pace, a lot of fun. Actually, a good time. I liked it fine before, but would recommend. Anyway, that's Saturday Night. Any desire to ever revisit that movie, Andy? I can't imagine you're ever gonna watch it again. Like, it's just
Not really. It didn't really kind of hit me, and I feel like I got it all in the first. It is very very fast paced, and I think it is good technical filmmaking. There's lots of very long, complicated shots that look like they probably had to be rehearsed really carefully. We get some good performances by Gabriel LaBelle as Lauren Michaels, and not Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, whose name
yes.
is escaping me at
Me
the
too.
at the moment. He's Cooper Seymour Hoffman.
Cooper
Um,
Hoffman. Yeah.
Cooper Hoffman
Yeah.
he's really good as well. Fun cast. It kind of missed, and everyone who's been on SNL like kind of disparaged the movie too. Chevy Chase was like, "That's not how it was. What's this? They're making all this stuff. Like, come on, man. Like, throw him a bone."
Yeah, Chevy Chase is like one of the major players in the movie. This is like the night his career is taking off, and Willem Dafoe's character, one of these NBC producers, is like, "You're gonna hit it big, kid. We should give you your own show," and he gets all excited. And yeah, even in reality, Chevy Chase is like, "That's not how it happened at all. That's garbage." I love it. Anyway, we got to talk about the news. Some unfortunate news this week, and a weird place to start the show, but it seemed like these seem like kind of the biggest stories, so we figured we'd just open with them. Michelle Trachtenberg passed away, which is really a bummer, dude. 39 years old, Harriet the Spy. She was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Black Christmas, which Andy watched. Weird, man. She's kind of one of us. She's like our age. And it doesn't seem like anything tragic. It seemed like it was due to complications of a liver transplant, which like just sucks. Just sucks, man.
Yeah, it was one of those people that kind of had a very good career from like child star to like teenage heartthrob, and like you said, things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Road Trip, Black Christmas that we're going to talk about later. Yeah, she was on Pete and Pete of the Nickelodeon show. Harriet the Spy as well as like a 9. I mean, she was working from a really really young age. And we heard this tragic news yesterday, or last week.
Yeah, favorite performance for me probably. I hate to say it's Eurotrip, dude, but I was way too young when I saw Eurotrip, and that movie had a profound effect on me in the worst sort of ways. And I always remember it. And then Harriet the Spy, like the orange VHS tape. We had one of those, dude. Yeah, can't forget it. How about you, Andy? Favorite Trachtenberg performance?
I think she's just someone that I always, because she transitioned to being more of a TV star, and those kind of young kind of college, like I said, something like Buffy and Gossip Girl. So I think I always saw her more as that. I didn't really ever watch those shows, but it was just someone that was a star for a long time, long career, and like I didn't realize she was that young, but she started working very young, so it was very sad.
Same. And it was a two for last week. We also lost Gene Hackman at 95 years old. The Oscar winning star of The French Connection passed away under some strenuous circumstances, which we've been talking about offline. I don't know how much you want to talk about the specifics of this anyway, but legend. Acting legend. Good God. Like, hugely, profoundly a bummer that this guy's gone.
Yeah, two-time Oscar winner for lead performances as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection and Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven, which is I think my favorite role of his. And he also he could do fun stuff too, like he was Lex Luthor in the original Superman movie. Could do a little bit of comedy. He retired from acting maybe 20 years ago, and this was really sad. And we don't really know what happened, and I'm gonna get into this a little bit, but the his body and his wife's body were discovered, and they figured it was maybe like a carbon monoxide thing or a gas leak, but now they're saying that they'd actually been dead for over a week, and they don't really know what is happening. So the investigation is ongoing, and we don't really know, but a legend is gone, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Favorite performance is probably Royal Tenenbaum from Wes Anderson's The Royal Tenenbaums 2001. It's great because Hackman is infamously said like he had no idea what was going on with the role and was just kind of like phoning it in. And it was like, I didn't really understand the vision. And then when you watch the movie, he is like arguably the best of the Tenenbaums. Like he seems like he gets it the most, even though he like admits off screen that he had no idea what he was doing. And also as Harry Call in The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola film. I watched that in college. I did not understand it. I still kind of don't, but I need to revisit it because I remember it was one of those early movies that really got my wheels turning about what the medium could be. And Hackman is this paranoid surveillance expert who gets rolled up in this murder case. I don't know. He's real good. How about you? Favorite Hackman performance?
Like the ones that jump to me, like I said, are Unforgiven. Also, he's great in the Quick and the Dead, and it's so interesting because he's such a domineering figure in Unforgiven. He's kind of the corrupt sheriff of this town, but he's not like a big strong guy or anything like that. But he's just fearless and just like it's a kind of a gun. It's a gunslinger thing, and it's a subversion of the Western genre, and he's so nasty. But just by his sheer presence, like the words like he's fearless, like he's not scared of anybody, legitimately not scared of anyone, and everyone is scared of him. And yeah, just an incredible role.
Yeah, wildly intimidating. Like stands taller than the screen. Hackman rocks, man. Big bummer. Something else this week, entirely different angle to slide us into some more regular news. Jason Statham is back for The Beekeeper 2. God, it's a terrible transition. Yeah, we saw The Beekeeper here on this podcast. It is something else, man. From Suicide Squad director David Ayer. Seems like a schlocky action film, but then you realize it's kind of doing the schlock on purpose. And it's kind of doing a bit the whole time, and you're either in on the joke or you're not. Beekeeper 2, admittedly, will probably echo that same sentiment, but it's interesting because it didn't seem like the first one did all that good, right? Like, who's turning out for part 2 of The Beekeeper?
I mean, I think it made $150 million off, I think, about a $40 million budget. So it's that sweet spot of the mid-budget Hollywood feature that goes, takes off. And he kind of is the same person in all these movies. He's like a working class guy who's like ex-military and can beat everyone up. And he beats up the bad guys. He stops the corruption. He doesn't really get the girl. He just beats everyone up. There's not really romantic subplots in these. but it works. Like the Statham formula works. It has worked so many times. He has a new film coming out soon called A Working Man, which is a similar. He's like a construction guy, and someone kidnaps his friend, and he's going to go beat everyone up. So he's going to be doing even more beekeeping in this in the follow up. I'm sure it'll be a hit.
I hope in The Beekeeper 2, Jason Statham's beekeeper character has to travel to some sort of like centralized hive location that is like bee themed and has like hexagons on the walls and like golden LED lights and stuff. And he has to like have a big shootout, and there's like globs of honey jars like exploding with bullets. Like I'm trying to think how you up the ante. And the only thing I can think is like you got to just double down on the bee theme, right? Like you really got to lean all the way in. I don't know. The first one is weird and kind of fun. Like it's better than I thought it would be, I think, but not anything outstanding. I mean,
he ends up at the White House in the first one, so
yeah,
you're gonna have to make it international, even bigger.
That's right. He's got to protect the hive by defeating the hive. He's going to attack the queen, take down the swarm.
It's going to be multi-city.
Our next story this week. No transition. I didn't have it. No segue. Francis Ford Coppola gives a scathing response to winning Worst Director for Megalopolis. Yes, this was a great story last week. Turns out Megalopolis caught a couple Razzie noms, and our man Francis Ford Coppola was all too happy to give his opinion. What is the story about, Andy?
I mean, the thing with the Razzie Awards, you got to take them on the chin with a good spirit. Halle Berry famously showed up to her when she won the Razzie for, I think it's Worst Actress for Catwoman from the mid 2000s, and she laughed it off. It was a big joke, but Francis Ford Coppola is legitimately angry. He says, "I'm thrilled to accept the Razzie Award in so many categories for Megalopolis and for the distinctive honor of being nominated as the worst director, worst screenplay, and worst picture at a time when so few have the courage to go against the prevailing trends of contemporary filmmaking." He's like, "You're not wrong. You just didn't get my film," is kind of what he's saying. It's that sort of thing. He was really offended about this, which is really funny. And Megalopolis is, it is pretty bad. Like we did watch it. There are some interesting things about it, and it is bold filmmaking, but it's also it's a swing and a miss.
I love this line. He kept going in his Instagram statement. He said, "What an honor to stand alongside a great and courageous filmmaker like Jacques Tati, who impoverished himself completely to make one of cinema's most beloved failures, Playtime." Like, are you flexing that you made a bad movie? What are we doing here? It's one of cinema's most beloved failures. Like, that's not a W, dude. But I love the attitude. Honestly, like it's great. I think it is foolish to come out against the Razzies. I think you should do the Halle Berry thing. Like, show up and get your award, dude. Or you earned your flowers. Like, you get a lot more good press out of being funny about the Razzies. And he kind of tried to do that. His angle was like, "I'm thrilled to accept the Razzie Award," but it's also like 3 paragraphs, and he has a couple sections that are all caps. And it's like, it's really obvious that he was pretty spun up about this. Pretty wound up about six Razzie noms. I don't know, man. I like Megalopolis fine. It made my top 10 last year. Admittedly, it was the 10 spot, but like, hey, I got it on there. I thought it was something special. Not for everybody for sure, but certainly I don't think the worst film of the year. We saw some junk last year. It wasn't that bad, but if I was a Razzie voter, I think I would have voted differently.
Yeah, we'll get into the Razzie a little bit later because there are some other non-notable films to talk about in that. That's always a fun award thing. That comes alongside the Oscars as well.
Yeah, we'll hit that right at the end of our Oscars talk here after our Ne Zha 2 review. One more story this week. From the box office, a slow weekend. Slowest weekend in years, I'm hearing. What's going on? Why is nobody going to the movies?
So it seems to be just a dearth of product. There's nothing new coming out. Captain America 4 has been in theaters for a couple of weeks already, and there was only one new movie. Now I've lost the name. Last Breath, which is a deep sea survival film starring Woody Harrelson and Simu Liu. Trailer looked interesting. One of those claustrophobic kind of things because they're like underwater in these stations, and they're like, "Oh no, you got to go out in your suit and crawl over the ocean floor and hope nothing bad happens," when that's exactly what's going to happen. So that came in second as a newer, but not much else. The Monkey came in third with another 6.4 million. That's done really good business. It's up at 25 million. And then Paddington in Peru. Notable though, even though it was a slow weekend, we had an increase in some of the Oscars picks. Anora was up 137%, and A24's The Brutalist saw an uptick of 25%. So the Oscars are giving some of these smaller movies a boost, which is exactly the point of the awards, is to kind of spotlight movies that people may not have normally gone out to see.
Man, I nearly bought the Brutalist 4K while the Oscars were happening. After it won a couple awards, I was like on Amazon, like, okay, it didn't come out till the 25th, but I could pre-order it now and it'll get here. I'm gonna wait. It's fine. I'm gonna wait. It's good. I can do it. I can wait. It's gonna be okay. But yeah, no surprise. Like, I think people are anxious to check out what's winning. As for Last Breath, just a quick thought on this. That movie is a small budget movie, right? Woody Harrelson, similarly, yeah, they're at the bottom of the ocean. It's got a 90% audience score on Rotten, so it's probably a fine movie. But dude, I like in a time when Hollywood seems to only greenlight stuff that seems like it's going to be a sure thing, seems like it's going to be a hit. Who is greenlighting the underwater claustrophobia movies? Am I the only one who doesn't want to go see those? I'm like, I don't think it's a phobia per se, but like, come on, like the no breath, can't get out, you're not going to make it movies. Like those are tough, man. Those are tough sells. Like that's I don't know. Anyway, we should move on to our first review of the episode. Any other thoughts on this one, Andy, for recommendations? Wait, what am I saying? For recommendations. Any other thoughts on this story before we jump into Ne Zha? Oh my God.
No, it's just, that's part of the business. You're gonna have slow weekends where there's not much coming out, or people are on vacation, or it's a big holiday and people are traveling, and so there's just nothing new, and everyone's trying to catch up on all the Oscar films.
Yeah, well, can't blame them, myself included. There's definitely a couple of Oscar films I haven't seen. We've mostly seen all of them, and you can roll back on our older views. But for now, we should move into what's next. And before we get into it, I guess before we talk about the proper film, Andy, do you want to wait? Hold on, we're not talking about the movie. We're talking about the Oscars. First.
We're going to Oscars. Man's in shambles.
What am I talking about? It's the Oscars, baby. Oscars 2025. Perfect. So. The Oscars happened. Yes, we have seen them. It was very exciting. I've got a little package that I built here. Boom, that I can put on screen. It looks great with some footage of Adrian Brody winning an award and Jeremy Strong not winning an award. Overall, pretty good night, I think. It was Sunday. I got cozy on the couch to watch it on Hulu here, only to find that Hulu wasn't working for me and most of the world. From like 6:30 to 7:30, like red carpet and the first couple awards, Hulu was just not having it, dude. You couldn't log in. You couldn't get anywhere. Like some people are getting kicked out of the app. I couldn't make it happen. And then finally, eventually, I got into it, and the show was rolling along fine. You got ads. You got a good back and forth. And they had a decent category lineup this year to get down to the big awards. But then when it comes down to it, right before best actress and best picture, the thing shut off. The Hulu just said, hey, it's done. You can't watch anymore. It's over. And then I just had to find out on Twitter how the awards ended. It was pretty spectacular. It's the biggest night at the movies, and Hulu couldn't keep it together. Really a bummer. But overall, a pretty good show. Conan O'Brien was a great host. Like, lots of fun, big laughs. They had this weird 4-minute James Bond segment in the middle that felt like an Amazon ad. Overall, I think everybody had a pretty good night. Andy, how was your experience, and what did you think of the awards?
So I was excited to watch this on the app as well, and then it wouldn't work, and I was nothing would load, nothing would, I couldn't do anything. I have a theory, because this happened with the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight on Netflix too, where they just clearly hadn't bought enough servers or whatever resources they needed, and it's like they don't care. They're just like they'll take the Twitter backlash rather than spend more money on making sure they have enough resources. So it felt very similar to that. So I couldn't really watch it at all. At no point would it work for me. So I just had to follow along on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Next year, I'm just going to buy an antenna and mount it to my roof so I can just watch ABC broadcast. I guess that'll be the way to do it. Or maybe not, because I think ABC doesn't have the rights to it. Either way, we got our Oscar ballots pulled up. It's got our winners against what Andy and I picked that we reviewed last week in our final noms review. So we'll go through the ones we know. After this, we'll hit the Razzies. Then we'll talk about Ne Zha 2. We got to talk about the biggest animated movie ever. So line up. Here we go. Let's jump into it. Andy, I guess we start at the top, right? Best Picture?
Yeah, best picture and kind of biggest story is that it was Anora's night. Anora won best picture, best director, best editing, best original screenplay, and of course a big upset. Mikey Madison for Best Actress, upsetting Demi Moore, who was kind of favored to win that. So 5 Oscars overall, 4 for Sean Baker alone, because he did write it and he does edit his own film. So this was like a new record. The previous person to win 4 Oscars in one night, Walt Disney. So pretty big shoes to fill. So that's the story for the night. I was correct on on this one. Following along closely, I've been watching the award circuit all season, like listening to lots of podcasts and breakdowns and all this stuff. So I felt like I had my finger on the pulse. So huge Best Picture win along with 4 other awards.
Listen, I, for one, am proud to be aligned on the show with somebody who is so good at calling them here. Andy's ballot picks were excellent this year. He blew me out of the water. I am so cross about how bad my ballot picks were that I got on to hear this interview, and I told Andy before we started, I was like, I'm doing a blind ballot next year. I don't want to see your picks. They're just going to throw my picks off. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it was absolutely a Nora's night. He's totally right. Sean Baker walks home with 4, gets Best Picture. I was mostly a Brutalist boy. I thought Brutalist was going to do some damage here, and it did. Brutalist had a great night. We saw Adrian Brody take home Best Actor. We saw Best Cinematography, Best Score go to Daniel Lumberg for The Brutalist. Huge picks, real big picks. And I remember telling Andy when he told me that people were gambling on the Oscars this year, I said, nobody should be dumb enough to gamble on the Oscars. But that being said, I would put money on Brutalist winning Best Score like you wouldn't believe. And I'm glad it won. And I felt good about that one. But otherwise, dude, I took some damage this year. Meanwhile, best supporting, right, were some surprises for us as well. Not a surprise for you. You were absolutely right about Kieran Culkin. But otherwise, best supporting was, surprising.
Yeah. Kieran Culkin was pretty much the front runner all season. Jeremy Strong was kind of in second place, but of course went to Kieran Culkin. That was the first award announced for the night. Of course, also Zoe Saldana won for Best Supporting Actress for Emilia Perez. It was a question whether or not her campaign was going to be hurt by the controversy that happened earlier in the season. So much can change in 6 weeks, because 6 weeks ago when the nominations were announced and Emilia Perez got 13, people were like, it's going to be an Emilia Perez sweep, best pick, 13 nominate. It's so much, and so much can change. Emilia Perez did win a second one. I forget what else. Best original song.
Music.
Best original song.
Original song. Yeah, you were right on. You were right on that one as well. You had called music, and I was like, I don't know any of these songs, but they had 2 of the 5 picks for Emilia Perez, so that was a good one off the top. Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, you had predicted as well. I had taken a swing at Ariana Grande, a hopeful swing that maybe she'd get it, but it's all right. She's got time. I think Ariana Grande can get an Oscar if she wants it. Jeremy Strong's a huge bummer, dude. I was really pulling for him. I know he didn't have a lot of success at some of the awards coming up to this. Like Culkin won the SAG Award. Like it just seemed like I think Culkin won the Golden Globe too. Like it seemed like he was probably going to get it. Yeah,
yeah.
For me, out of these, the big upset was Demi Moore not getting actress over Mikey Madison. Like Mikey Madison, it was a Nora's night for sure. But like, dude, both of us thought it was a lot. Her and Chalamet, right? I mean, my God.
I literally, because it pulled up on my phone, and I immediately said no, and I realized that's not the reaction to have, because a lot of people see the awards as the Oscars as a legacy kind of award. You reward a career, not just a performance. But sometimes you reward kind of the finding of a new talent. That's what Lily Gladstone was last year, or Ariana DeBose. In this case, it did go to Mikey Madison for Nora, which is really deserving. That is an incredible performance. It is her first. That's literally her first starring role, and also her first nomination and win, which is crazy. And at the young age of 25, and it's almost harder to win that young, because then you got to kind of spend part of your career proving that you deserved it. It's one thing when you have a career like Leonardo DiCaprio or Timothée Chalamet, when you haven't done much, there's a lot of pressure, and sometimes people don't go on to do much. I think she's going to be fine though. But like, for instance, Ariana DeBose has done nothing but like dog water movies since West Side Story. We're pulling for her. We know she's capable of more.
Yeah, and it plays real funny opposite Chalamet losing actor to Adrian Brody, right? Because Chalamet's got the opposite story that Michael Madsen has. He's been in like 12 bangers. He's a King Midas in movies. Every movie Chalamet is in makes $100 million and is awesome, and he's diverse and different every time. It just seemed like a shoe-in for Complete Unknown. God, he sings and dances on screen. He plays guitar. There's like 40 songs. We both had him picked. Adrian Brody beats him out. It's a bummer. Adrian Brody sets the world record for the longest Oscar speech ever. A little lame when he told him to turn the music off. Gonna be honest. And I'm a Brody stan. I like Adrian Brody, but like, dude, come on, get out of here. And yeah, what are you gonna do?
The other
I do want to talk
thing,
about animated film. Go ahead.
for sure. So the other thing about these acting awards is there's a certain momentum. Like if you're with Mikey Madison, when I think about like, oh well, her movie won Best Picture, Director, Writing, editing. Like if you're checking all those boxes for Nora, it creates a momentum where like, yeah, she's probably makes sense for her to win it. And then with Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown was shut out. It was nominated for 8 awards, 1 0. So that's maybe more of a, the Academy wasn't feeling the movie, so they weren't going to pick just the performance from it.
Yeah. Actually, which is a good thing too, because I was putting this together and I actually thought Conclave had got completely beat out and won nothing, but they won that sneaky adapted screenplay, right? They got that over there.
You called it.
Which was my guess at it. I was like, man, maybe. I also thought Conclave was going to win a couple other things too, but it's all right. Meanwhile, visual effects and sound both go to Dune Part 2. Couldn't believe it. My God, Dune Part 2, Academy Award winning film. And thank God, I'm glad. They feel like small categories compared to the bigger ones, but dude, visual effects is an insane category in the year of our Lord 2025. If you can win visual effects, you're doing something great. As for the sound, hard to argue, man. The sound was incredible in that movie. I thought, I don't know, Complete Unknown maybe for the live singing and acting, but nah, dude, the sound of riding a sandworm is unbeatable.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about animated.
I did. Flow won. I don't believe it. We just recovered Flow on the podcast last week. Scrappy little $10 million indie film, a Latvian film, rendered all on one computer, 85 minutes. They didn't even use a render farm, Andy. They didn't even use language. There's no subtitles in the movie. Like, this movie makes these other movies look so much larger, and somehow Flow walks away with it. Like, kind of a big win for indie cinema. Kind of a big win for small animators who feel like, well, I don't have a big budget and I don't have a big team and I can only do so much. You'd be surprised what you can get away with. Like, Flow is a good time. It's a testament to what's possible.
It was a $3 million film. You compare that to Inside Out 2, which I think is a $200 million film. Wild Robot, around a little bit over $100 million budget. So, I mean, incredibly small and, not usually, there's no dialogue. There's not a lot of, there's no songs, there's no singing and dancing. It's very philosophical. But I mean, I changed my pick after I saw it. That's how much it affected me. We mentioned the Brutalist one, cinematography. We were both correct on that pick. Costume design went to Wicked, which we also picked correctly. So we were on a little bit of a roll. That I'm going to roll through these. Documentary feature film, which we haven't watched any of these, went to No Other Land, which I know is about Palestine. I don't know much more than that. Documentary short went to The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Zach, tell us about international feature.
Yeah, this went to I'm Still Here, which was my guess, and I haven't seen. So a complete blind shot. I just know it's been getting a ton of praise. I know it's been getting a lot of attention. I know the performances have been really hot. I don't know. I total shot in the dark. We did actually see Emilia Perez. I wanted to see Seed of Sacred Fig, and I did see Flow. But out of those, I just felt like, I don't know. I feel like that one might have the smoke this year. So at least I can read the presser, right? At least I can read the room and guess which way the wind's gonna blow. Meanwhile, Makeup and Hairstyling was a film we'd both seen. The Substance. Very excited. The Substance is an Academy Award winning film, even if it's for a smaller one. Even if it's through Makeup and Hairstyling, I don't care. They can put it on the Blu-ray. It'll be great. I don't know, man. Like I was pretty pleased overall. I think with all of these, like, not too shabby of an evening. Oh, and production design, which I take it back. I was bummed about production design. Wicked won production design, and I thought
that was a bit of a surprise. Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, we had picked every other film. Wicked did better than I had thought. Again, most of the below the line technical awards. I wanted to quickly say about international feature. this was kind of Amelia Perez's award to lose, and they absolutely lost it to I'm Still Here, likely because of the controversy earlier in the season. I mean, it definitely did hurt it. Finally, let's talk a little bit about writing. This is where I missed on both of these, and Zach guessed this right. Adapted screenplay went to Conclave. Was the only award that Conclave won. Based on that, of course, directed by Edward Berger, based on the novel of the same name.
Yeah. Meanwhile, writing original screenplay went to Nora, which both of us missed. You guessed Real Pain, and I guessed The Substance. Conclave win was weird, man. I did think it was going to do better. I mean, there were people talking about it being a conclave sweep this year. Like Conclave was gonna win Best Picture, right? Like might do it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
Might sneak.
But just like Substance, it just gets like one, right? Like, which hey is huge. It got nominated for a lot more, but like even still, like glad to see it get in here. Like I know it's adapted, it's not an original work, but like sharp for what's there. Conclave's real good stuff. I would have figured maybe an acting award or something, but dude, like the acting was stacked this year. I feel like all of this was stacked this year. 2025 was a real banger year at the movies.
Yeah, I mean, it was changing every week. It was a different front runner. I mean, when the nominations came out, it was Amelia Perez, then it was The Brutalist, then it was Conclave, then it was a Nora, and like the previous winners, smaller awards things were all over the place. So it was hard to completely predict. But I think the right people won, and Mikey Madison definitely deserves to win as much of an upset as it is for Demi Moore. Because sometimes people win and it's like, why? But she definitely deserved it, and I look forward to seeing more great performances from her.
Yeah, me too. I think she's got a lot to offer. One more thing we should talk about before we move into Ne Zha, the Razzies. Gotta take a quick look at the worst awards in film, right? So we've got a list pulled up from the Hollywood Reporter. We're gonna roll through these real fast for you. Any highlights here, Andy? I mean, besides obviously Francis Ford Coppola flipping out about this on Instagram, losing his mind.
I think the funny thing is that we definitely have seen a number of these because we are dedicated to cinema, and that means sometimes watching movies that aren't super great.
For the love of the game, baby.
That's right. Worst picture went to Madam Web, a comic book movie based originally, released everywhere. A serious Razzie contender. Other nominees were Borderlands, Joker 2, Megalopolis, and Reagan.
I love it. Let's see. You got worst picture. I'll knock out actors and actresses here. Worst actor went to Jerry Seinfeld for Unfrosted. Worst actress was Dakota Johnson, Madam Web. Worst actor, supporting actor was John Voight for Megalopolis, Reagan, Shadowland, and Strangers. Good God, 4 films? Come on, he's one of the best parts of Megalopolis. And supporting actress goes to Amy Schumer, also for Unfrosted. Boy, we didn't watch Unfrosted, and that's one I've thought about since, because I had a few people ask me what I thought of that movie. And I was like, I didn't see it. And it's always funny that, like, we'll go see a bunch of stuff throughout the year, and then it's the stuff we miss that people are like, hey, what'd you think of this thing? Maybe worth revisiting at some point. Or maybe not, according to the Razzies.
Of course, worst director went to Francis Ford Coppola for Megalopolis. Other films in this category: S.J. Clarkson for Madam Web, Todd Phillips for Joker 2, Eli Roth for Borderlands, Jerry Seinfeld again for Unfrosted. I like that they have fun with these because they have worst on-screen combo, which went to Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. That is just mean. Other nominees were any 2 obnoxious characters, but especially Jack Black from Borderlands, any 2 unfunny comedic actors from Unfrosted, the entire cast of Megalopolis, Dennis Quaid, Penelope, and Miller. Worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel also went to Joker 2, and finally, worst screenplay went to Madam Web. So Madam Web, multiple Razzie winner.
My God,
or loser. I don't know how you.
Yeah, the Joaquin and Lady Gaga getting worse on-screen combo really is just mean for mean's sake. Like, come on now, they're not that. They're fine. Like, good Lord. The Razzies continue to be a delight. I'm glad we don't take it too seriously. I don't think Francis Ford Coppola should. I don't think anybody should. Yeah, that's the Razzies. And that's 2025 at the movies, like 2024 at the movies, really. Like, overall, pretty good year, man. Like, I was really pleased with things. I think this year will be a little bit, not quite slow burn, but a little bit more chill. And then 2026 is going to be real big. I think the lineup for 2026 is going to be pretty outrageous. New Chris Nolan movie coming out, and anything could happen. Any other thoughts on the year, Andy, before we jump into Ne Zha?
I I think this is gonna kind of bridge. So we saw Ne Zha 2 last night, and it was a pretty spectacular experience. And it reminded me of like while everyone's having a lot of big conversations and big feelings about the Oscars, like cinema continues. We still got great movies coming up. We watched one yesterday, and we have Mickey 17 coming out this week. So while people are going to be talking about awards and things and stuff, there's always new stuff coming out, and that's always really exciting.
Yeah, keep it on off script for more. That is a great segue, Andy. Shoot, you should be doing this. Well, with that, we should move out of the Oscars, move into the first film we're going to talk about this episode. This one's a funny one, man. I'm really looking forward to talking about it. I don't know, Andy, do you want to like intro the film and then talk about the first one, or do you want to do a soft intro of the first movie and then jump right into the second? Where are you at?
Let me just give some background about this. So, Ne Zha is a Chinese animated film. The first one came out in 2019. It was a film made for about $20 million. Went on to make like $750 million. The sequel, Ne Zha 2, which also has a subtitle that's not translated for ease, came out just in late January 29th. In 2 weeks, it made $1 billion in basically just China. And it expanded more internationally on the 14th of February. 33 days later, it has made $2 billion. You know how many movies have made $2 billion? Like 3. Think Star Wars, The Force Awakens, or Avengers Endgame. And this is largely a children's animated film. But it's just massively huge. And I did take, like I said, I took the time to watch the first one. The second one is like, it's like the Dark Knight to Batman Begins. It's like head and shoulders above the first film. And I've seen no promotion for this, but I kept reading stories about the numbers. They're like, hey, this movie from China just came out. It's made $1 billion. They're thinking it's going to make over 2. And I was like, what in the world is this? Why haven't we not heard about it at all? So we're going to get into it. I'll do a brief recap of the first one and then jump into the second one. Generally, it has to do with Chinese mythology, and characters think the Western equivalent would be things like Zeus or Norse mythology like Thor. It deals with gods and people and demigods and all this. So in the first film, 2019, Ne Zha, there's this thing called the Chaos Pearl, which is this force that's kind of devouring everything on Earth in the universe. The gods see fit to split the Chaos Pearl into 2, creating the Demon Orb and the Spirit Pearl. The Demon Orb is reincarnated as a human in the form of Ne Zha, and then his kind of counterpart, the Spirit Pearl, is Ao Bing. In the first film, they are enemies, and it's a enemies to friends storyline. They eventually overcome their differences, unite against a common enemy, give their life to save the town of Changtang Pass, and but their spirits remain at the end of the first film. And so when we pick up on the second one, see, it's already a lot going on. These plots are very convoluted, and complicated, and I'm trying to do it as simply as possible.
You're doing good.
At the beginning of the second film, they're trying to reincarnate their bodies again. Their spirits are here. They need a body. The ceremony kind of goes wrong. Ne Zha gets his body back, but Ao Bing does not. They are attacked by the antagonist of the film, Shen Gong Bao. They're attacked by the Dragon Clan, who are awesome, by the way. They're like chained in hell, like floating in lava underneath the earth. They're real scary. And there's this, like 10 minutes into this film, like they attack and they're like come through portals, and they have their minions who are like attached by chains, and it's this big scene like 10 minutes in. So the ceremony gets interrupted. They end up going to the heavens, like a Mount Olympus style place. And Ne Zha has to complete 3 trials so that Ao Bing can get a physical body. Meanwhile, the Dragon Clan is holding the city of Changtang Pass hostage, and there's some subplots there. They have their own machinations going. There's lots. It's Shakespearean in a way. There's lots of characters and lots of plot things, and like there's double crossing and backstabbing and double backstabbing and all that. It's like if you've seen an anime, like those big kind of fight scenes that you would get in like, it's like that on steroids, like huge battles, crazy animation. And this movie's long. It's a little over 2 hours and 20 minutes, about 2.5 hours. And man, it just goes. It was a wild time. That's our setup. Zach, what'd you think?
So I didn't really know what to think going into Ne Zha 2, other than it's the highest grossing animated film ever at this stage. Like they said they sold something like 300 million tickets, which is insane. Like I just incredible numbers out of this thing. And nobody in this country is talking about it. Nobody seems to care. It's weird. It's surreal. Like for two people who do a movie podcast like Andy and I, it is weird to see a movie making waves like this and we haven't seen it. Like we ended up seeing RRR because of the buzz here in the United States of people being like, hey, you got to see this thing. No one's talking about this movie from China that just smashed this incredible record. No one's talking about it. It's weird. So I was looking forward to checking it out, and I didn't want to watch a trailer. I thought, you know what? I'm not going to go see the first one. I'm just going straight. It's a kid's film. Like, they have to be able to talk to new audiences. This is the first thing this movie has to do, right? Like, it has to be able to pander to somebody who isn't really familiar with the world around them, children. So I, knowing nothing, should be perfect. And let me tell you, it's a long film, 2.5 hours. It's quite grand in scale for sure, man. Like there's a lot that happens in this movie, and there are times when the animation is like probably the coolest stuff I've ever seen on screen in an animated feature. Like hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the army of heaven swinging on like these dragon demons from hell, like with all these chains and a lot like. It's kind of insane. It's difficult to describe here on a podcast, which is why I'm glad we've got the video up if you're checking us out on YouTube. I didn't know what to expect. Overall, I'm glad with what I saw. I think I was a little bored, unfortunately, and that's just the fact that it's 2.5 hours long. I don't understand like how a children's film was supposed to keep a kid's attention for 90 minutes, much less 2.5 hours. Outside of that, though, like it's really creative, and I'm actually really glad I went and saw it. I don't know if I'm going to go chase the first one down, but I think if they make another, there's probably a good chance we end up seeing that one too.
Yeah, and it's set up for a third film. Absolutely. I want to talk about the kind of the tone of it because it is a children's film. It has some slapstick in it. Not quite as much as the first film, which I appreciated, but there's silly humor. Our Ne Zha is he's someone that has a temper. He like is kind of wild and out of control, and he's not very like he doesn't have good manners. And Al Bing is the kind of the exact opposite. He's very like proper and has good manners and is much calmer. So they're a good foil to it. And there's this whole plot line where they have to share one body while they're going through these trials, and they kind of switch personality, which is like a really funny thing that happens throughout the movie. So it has good humorous moments. A lot of it's like it's silly because it's aimed at younger audiences, but we have these two wild personalities. The other thing is that it's very, very Chinese. And what I mean by that is that this is not catered to the West at all. Like a lot of there's a lot of names. They're all very long. Like it's hard for me to remember.
I know.
Because
I couldn't tell you most of them.
Yeah. Shen Gaobang is like the antagonist. And the other thing, a lot of Chinese cinema and culture is based around nature. And we see that a lot in the film. There's like, fire versus water versus ice, and snow, and lots of like lotus this and fire that, and those kinds of that kind of Chinese iconography. If you watched, a martial arts film, even you'll see a lot of that. So that's mixed in here as well as the anime style fight scenes, which are bigger than what you've seen in most anime. Is even by anime standards, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think Ne Zha 2's like biggest strength are in its visuals for two reasons. Namely, one, its variety of settings. Dude, we go everywhere. Like we're in a small town in the mountains. We're flying through the sky. It's night. It's day. We're underwater. We're in a volcano. We're traveling through the woods. We're fighting in a jungle. Like we're inside a mountain. Like there are so many different places of settings for Ne Zha 2 to dig into. Cool lighting, cool particle effects, rad fog, smoke, clouds, punching through flames, punching through water, shooting through electricity. Like The amount of like states of matter that are explored and moved through in Ne Zha 2 is compelling for a children's film, as well as the monster design. There are so many different characters in this and monsters, and all of them look different and cool and unique and have their own style and setting and substance and character silhouette. Yeah, like Ao Bing looks totally different from Ne Zha. Like if you just held the two of them up against a screen, you could tell immediately which one was one over the other. This happens to like the 30 characters in the movie. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own space and shape and their own ideals. Like it feels very grand in scale and it feels very large in scope. And I think that's part of the reason you get return customers, right? Like part of the reason families in China are going to see this and then going back to seeing next week is because kids are so mind boggled by 2.5 hours of light and magic that they get to the end. They're like, I can barely remember what happened in the first hour. You know what I mean? Like you go back and see it again. You're like, I forgot about this. You got trials. You got to fight 3 demons and you got to go to the top of the mountain and do this thing. Like the amount of questing that happens here across time and space, dude, like it's genuinely impressive. Like I'm reminded of like Raya and the Last Dragon, Disney movie from a couple years ago. That seems like it's going to be grand at the beginning. They're like, Raya, you got to travel to 3 different places and get these things. But like 2 of those are basically a montage. It's really just kind of a travel movie and it wraps in 90 minutes. This is like the actual, like, this is putting that idea to power and proving that they're like, no, we are going to go on a grand adventure. This is going to be a whole thing. In America, this would have been a miniseries. This would have been like a 6-episode thing on Netflix or something, you know, with half the budget. And instead, it's like this really big, bold epic, but also a children's movie.
Yeah, I truly, and again, the day after we saw this the day after the Oscars, like, and it was kind of refreshing to see something like this and be like, oh, there is still great new things even after all these awards. 10 minutes in, I was like, I have never seen anything like this, and I've never seen it, especially directed at children. And one of the things I had heard early on was, oh, the final battle is like makes the end of Avengers Endgame look quaint, look like child's play. And I was like, that's a bold claim. And it kind of is, and that's what I wanted to segue into was the action. So we get a mix of these giant battles, and this is a big difference from the first film. The first film doesn't have big battles between armies; it just has them kind of between 1 or 2 people. And so that's a big difference here. Is we have these huge armies. We have this like dragon army from hell with all these like crustacean minions, like crabs and octopus that are in chains, and they leap out through these portals, and you know are attacking the city. And then we also have this like army from heaven that has it's like tens of thousands of soldiers. And being like in the style of a wushu kind of film, we're dealing with demigods, and so everyone can kind of do superhuman things. Two of the kind of warriors from heaven. There's a great scene where someone's trying to hunt someone else with a bow, and the guy's bow just keeps growing. Like there's unprecedented levels of this isn't even my final form, but like his bow just gets bigger and wider. It basically turns into a tree, and then like his arm turns into 1,000 arms and releases 1,000 arrows, and it's just like, oh my god.
Yes, everybody can level up 19 times, and it always looks effortless when they do it. Except for our lead, of course, Ne Zha, who would be like screaming like a Super Saiyan, right? As he like levels up to his next and possibly final form. Very funny movie. Like I know it's a kid's movie, but I was impressed at like just how quick some of the gags come, even in some of the more serious parts, and B, how many of the subjects of that comedy are things that would typically be taboo here in the United States. For example, Ne Zha and Ao Bing are sharing one body in the first half of the movie, and the way they switch back and forth is taking copious amounts of sleeping pills, which like American audiences would never tell children, like, take a bunch of sleeping pills. That'll work it out perfect. Like, would never do that. There's a couple gags involving like a brutal nosebleed or even just blood in general, which is a surprise. Like I would never see copious amounts of red blood in an American children's film, especially not made in 2025. But here we are. Like it's a little bit more normal over there. There is some funny stances on the idea of like a supreme leader and like having the mandate of heaven. Like there's some interesting stuff there that I don't think is really worth exploring because it's a children's film, but I did notice it. It's a 2.5-hour movie and it's certainly from another part of the world. And most important, like also intriguing, like just how frightening some of the visuals are. There's definitely some like horror from hell stuff in here. There's like people getting melted and souls' faces crumble. I was like, oh my God. And something that was off-putting for me, a man, a lot of open weeping, which I thought was a little strange. And I realize it's not that weird for, I think, Chinese cinema, but yeah, a lot of characters like openly crying over one another and wailing out in public in front of for each other. Doesn't happen a lot in America. Normally you keep the tears in, or there's like one lone tear rolling down somebody's face. You know what I mean? So like the sixth or seventh like open weeping scene, I was like, okay, all right, I need to go rebutter my popcorn or something.
Yeah, there is a lot of scream crying, is what I call it. I'm
That's
reminded
good. Yeah.
of Leonardo DiCaprio in Romeo and Juliet, because he's like scream crying half his lines in that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I did want to talk about it. It like translation and it being a kids film. It is a kids film, but it is not your kids film. Like this would probably be rated PG-13 in the States. There is a lot of violence. There is a lot of dark stuff. Like some of the like the dragons in hell is kind of scary. There's kind of a there's dark stuff in here. Also, there are a lot of subtitles. There's not a dub out yet. I definitely would actually. This is probably one of the few times I'm going to recommend wait till the dub comes out, because there are a ton of subtitles and they go so fast. Like I basically can't look at the screen because there's so much dialogue and it's going by so fast that like if you have a 10-year-old that isn't the strongest reader, like they're going to be real behind. So it is a kids film, but I think you got to wait until there's a dubbed version, because I think the subtitles were hard for me to keep up with as an adult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just a little bit of caution there that it's more PG-13 than PG kids film.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was yeah, surprised at how mature it is, surprised at how big it is. Overall, yeah, the scale and scope of it, I think, is surprising because here we haven't heard anything about it. Nobody's talking about this movie, it just doesn't seem to be getting a lot of attention. Meanwhile, like Andy and I saw it in an IMAX theater. Like it's got IMAX screenings here, but no one's turning out to see it. Like it's just it's strange. So I'm glad we got to check it out. I think there's probably another one of these movies coming, especially considering how much money it made. I feel like I'm running out of things to say before final recommendations. Andy, any other thoughts?
I will say it definitely was worth seeing it on the big screen. It is a big screen experience. Like I said, it's tricky because kids will unless like your kids speak Chinese, like they will struggle with the subtitles. But it's definitely worth seeing in theaters.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, subtitles are busy, dude. You're going to read a lot of subtitles, but even still, big visuals for sure. Andy, would you recommend Ne Zha 2?
I really would. This was really incredible. I have never seen anything like it. It's a kids film, but there's also plenty of stuff for adults in there. There's lots of action. Like I said, it celebrates Chinese mythology. Fun characters design, very entertaining. It looks amazing. Like I said, I've never seen the animation is really incredible. Like it makes Pixar like, what are you guys doing here? You guys, like I said, the translation is challenging. So you might want to have a little bit older kids or wait till there's an English dub. Aside from that, definitely highly recommend see it in theaters if you can.
I'm not so warm on it. I think it's a lot of fun. Look, if you got nothing to do for an afternoon and you want to go see something odd, I think it's worth seeing in theaters. Otherwise, you can probably wait for it to come to streaming. The thing is, I don't know what streaming service it might come to. It's weird, man. Like I was telling Andy when we left, I was surprised at how many Disney trailers ran in front of this. But I can't imagine this is going to be on Disney Plus. I'm assuming it'd be VOD like the first one. I don't know. Like I think another one's probably coming. I don't know if people are going to see it here. Like it's weird that it has made so much money overseas and just had so little impact here for one reason or another. So I think it's a good time for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily something I would be quick to show to kids just because of some of its more mature themes. Andy's right. Like it's definitely like a stronger PG than just like throw it on and forget about them. Like they're going to come back with questions for sure. But otherwise, surprisingly fun time. Ne Zha 2. Not too shabby.
Yeah. And it's funny because we just finished talking about Oscars. I was like, I think it's probably going to get an animation nomination this time next year.
Yeah, probably.
We'll be talking about it.
Yeah. Do you know, by the way, this is the first time in its history that Disney has not won an Oscar for Best Animated in over 3 years. It lost
Yeah,
the
3
last
years in a row
three.
it's lost.
First time, yeah, ever happened. It's like, oh my God, Disney. Anyway, we got one more movie to talk about this week. Quick insert here because we were going to talk about this at the front of the show, but we figured maybe we should talk about it a little bit more, expand it out a little bit. So, Andy, what did you watch this week?
In honor of Michelle Trachtenberg's passing, I watched the 2006 version or adaptation of Black Christmas, which is a remake of the 1970s classic slasher film about a group of sorority girls who are murdered in their, or there's a slasher on the loose. So this takes place around Christmas time. There's a sorority house. It's the end of the semester. It's wrapping up. People are going home. Some people are sticking around. And there's a killer on the loose, Billy Lentz, who his family originally owned the house. He ended up slaughtering his parents for undisclosed reasons and was, carted off to the mental institution. He, of course, escapes, makes his way back, begins a frenzy. But it seems like there may be more than one killer on the loose. This, of course, starred Michelle Trachtenberg, the great Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who has power bangs in every 2000s film she was in. Also starred Katie Cassidy and Lacey Chabert. So these were, icons of the 2000s. It's pretty gruesome, a lot of it, but somehow a little bit slow at the same time. It's only an 85-minute feature. But man, I was a little bored. I was like, I should have picked a better Michelle Trachtenberg movie to watch, but here we are.
Yeah. I think Black Christmas is a movie that has evaded me. I'm going to be honest. Like when Andy first told me, I watched this with Michelle Trachtenberg in it, I Googled it and I came up with the more recent remake, which was, when did you say, 2015?
2019.
2019, yeah, which is completely overwritten like any Google searches for this movie. And then you go looking back further, and there's actually an older version from like the 50s, right? With Bob Clark
70s.
had, yes, like, so there's a few Black Christmases for sure, but I didn't know a lot about this one. I didn't know it had anything to do with the Final Destination producers. Yeah, knowing Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in it, it makes a little bit more sense. But looking at the trailer, it just looks a whole lot like sorority house girls have a bunch of stuff go wrong, right? It's Christmas themed. Was this a weird, I mean, it's got to be a weird out of season watch for you, right? I know you're watching it obviously because of Michelle Trachtenberg, rest in peace. But I mean, Christmas in what, February?
Yeah, so it came out on Christmas Day back when it came out, and there was lots of uproar about that. It's strange because it's a mix of Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like the Billy Lentz character is a Michael Myers ripoff, but then they make an effort to make the family as kind of twisted as possible. Like Billy Lentz is born yellow, like he has jaundice, and then his skin is permanently yellow. And his mother and her lover kill his father and bury him in the house, like under the house, and they lock him upstairs forever. It gets really kind of unnecessarily dark. It was a lot of times, particularly in like the 70s and 80s, they didn't really know what to do new with horror movies, so they would do something that you'd already seen before, but just try to make it as twisted as possible. And it kind of it's a little nasty, even for someone who loves horror. It's just like unnecessarily gross. And also it's a whole lot of like violence against women, which isn't really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it felt kind of gross watching it, honestly.
Yeah, I wanted to know. I was going to say the violence looks pretty gooey. I could see that for sure. Is it sexy at all? It didn't look like a particularly sexy movie. Like it just kind of looks like a gooey, gory.
So it definitely
Scream queen.
seemed a little bit more progressive than a lot of those slashers used to be, which would definitely exploit female nudity. I think there's like one like half nude scene. None of the stars get naked. I was actually Mary Elizabeth Winstead dies off screen. She dies like she's in a car, and you just see like the blood splatter the inside of the car, and then you never see her again.
That's a bummer.
So yeah, I was like that. But yeah. It was a whole lot of kind of. It's really unnecessarily grisly, kind of for no reason, and it just kind of goes on to it. There are way too many people in this movie. I could not keep anyone apart. They don't really name anyone, and they're like, oh, it's Heather and Claire and Melissa and Dane. Like, there's like 10 people in this house, and I was like, who? And they're like, so and
Yeah.
so's upstairs. I was like, I have no clue who that is. And there's like
Well,
3 blonde women. So
yeah, I was gonna say, like, we just mentioned in our Ne Zha 2 review, like the importance of like good character silhouettes that everybody looks and feels distinctly different from one another. Looking at the IMDb run up for Black Christmas, I was like, I have trouble seeing just who all's in this movie here on this list, like, because everybody starts to look the same, like they're definitely going for a specific kind of actress. Like you're looking for this sorority house kind of gal, and like mission accomplished, but also like it just feels so vapid. You know what I mean? Like you think of if it's a 50-year-old 40-year-old remake of a 70s movie, like they might have done something a little bit more. I don't know. I think they were just going for gasps, right? It was Christmas, and we're gonna get people out in the movies. That was the plan.
yeah, I hear it's not an exact remake of the 1974 version. That it's a reimagining, a loose reimagining. So I wonder if maybe that one has more to say. But that was the other thing. It's kind of grisly, and a lot of times good horror has something to say. It's got a message or a theme, and there wasn't really any of that. And it is a little bit of a mystery of like who, because it's clear that there's more than one killer, and we know that eventually it's revealed that there's a secret daughter to Billy Lentz, and that she has come back, and so it's a little bit of who done it, because you assume it's maybe someone in the house, but you're not sure who. So a little bit of that. There's this whole thing of characters kind of crawling through the crawl spaces in the house, because it's a big sorority house. There's multiple rooms and multiple floors, and so a lot of it is like the killer's like going under the house and through the walls and up in the attic and all this like maneuvering in ways the rest of us can't. So there's a little bit of mystery there. It's a little underwhelming though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know it's from the makers of Final Destination, right? So surely it's got a little bit of that DNA in it, right? Like it's especially having Mary Elizabeth Winstead in there seems like a layup.
Yeah, it's definitely taking notes from that the mid 2000s like teen comedy or horror, things like Not Another Teen Movie, or like you said, road trip, American Pie series. It's definitely a little bit in that vein. It's just it's lacking, and it did okay. I think it just kind of broke even box office wise, but it's not as inspired as something like Final Destination.
Well, I gotta know. Coming down to it, would you recommend Black Christmas? 2006 is Black Christmas.
I would say probably soft pass if you're a horror head and you're looking to complete your slashography and or pay tribute to Michelle Trachtenberg. I probably should have found a better movie of hers to watch or something. I feel kind of bad. I was like, this wasn't the one to pay tribute to. But but if you're a fan of horror and you've seen the 74 and maybe the more recent 2019 version, why not? It is only 85 minutes. It's not super long. So yeah, skip it unless you're really interested.
I gotta send you a DVD of Euro Trip. That's the answer. That'll get you straightened right out. Surprise Matt Damon appearance in Euro Trip. Boy, well, that's Oscar Film Review, episode 284. My God, took a look at the Oscars, the Razzies, Ne Zha 2, Black Christmas from 2006. Why not? What are we watching next week, Andy?
It's finally here. Mickey 17, the long-awaited follow-up from director Bong Joon-ho. It stars Robert Pattinson as a worker on the moon or in space, who seems to be constantly disposable. Long awaited, 6 years since his last film. Really excited about that. And then we're gonna be looking for something else on streaming, maybe one of these Oscar winners. Some FYI releases. The action film starring Dave Bautista and Mila Jovovich, In the Lost Lands, comes out this week as well. I've seen a couple trailers for that. That looks fine. And some upcoming things, Novocaine hitting theaters March 15th, along with Opus, also March 15th. And then Snow White, which we did see a longer trailer for on March 21st. I think that movie's actually going to do all right, because there's just nothing else to take the kids to. So it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It looks bad, but it'll do fine.
Yes. I think Disney will come out neutral on it. I don't think they'll lose a bunch of money. I don't think they'll get a bunch of money. I think they'll get it over the hump. They'll get to Fantastic Four as soon as they can, right? They'll get down the line to Thunderbolts. Very much looking forward to Mickey 17. I've been looking forward to that one for a while. I got tickets already to go see it with a buddy. this Saturday. It's going to be a good time, and we'll find something else to watch here on the show. If you enjoyed the show today, Off Script Film Review episode 284, the best way you can check us out and keep up with us here is just subscribe to the show on your favorite platform. We're on YouTube. Big things going on over on YouTube. You can follow us over there. Come subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Like this video if you're watching it right now. We can check us out. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all these social media places. You can leave a comment over there, a like, a share. Every little bit helps. A follow, perhaps. Our audio listeners, we're on, let's see, an audio version of the podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, and that's probably all of them. I think there's one other in there. Amazon, CarPlay, Google Play, I think is the one I'm thinking of. And I should get out of here because I am flubbing this intro so bad, dude. From all of us at Offscript. Oh, our website, offscriptfilmview.com. You can email us correspondence directly at mail@offscriptfilmview.com. From all of us at Offscript, the home of Bolt Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.